Hey, welcome back to the Founder Hotline. In this podcast, we discuss the ins and outs of entrepreneurship and the challenges that arise when running a business. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Ruben. I'll be your host, and we work with founders who've become the bottleneck in their own company. In 2 days, they get clear on where they're actually wanting to go and walk out with a team that can get there without the founder in every damn room. Today, I've brought Brooke along. Brooke and I met a little while ago and had an instant personal connection. And what really connects us, other than the fact that we both have heavy ADHD, is that we both work with founders and we both see like the ins and outs of how a business runs, but also what founders come up against. Hey, Brooke, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Ruben?
I'm good. I'm super excited. We've got an event coming on next Friday. So that's in 2 days. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to launch, but for me right now, it is within 2 days. It's called The Scan. So it's 12 founders in one room. It's going to be a full day. And basically they walk in thinking that they know what's really broken in their business. But by the end of the day, every single one of them will be looking at their own business with a completely different problem that has been like sketched out for them.
That's amazing. I'm excited to hear about it after you do it, and hopefully you do more so other people that aren't a part of this one have the opportunity to sign up if they want. That's all I'm saying. Okay, well, Ruben, you and I were talking this week, and I kind of picked just like a broad theme, which is strategy, and I wanted to just like ask you questions about it, primarily because like when we talk about it, I see your passion for strategy, but I also think it's a very like broad buzzword sometimes and doesn't mean the same thing to like everyone. So my first question for you is just like, what is strategy to you? Like what falls under the bucket of strategy? How would you define it? Just like a level setting of when you use the word strategy, like what are you kind of talking about?
That's a good one. I think I've done a lot of keynotes on strategy actually, and I like to start out by saying that strategy is the most abused word in the world, basically, because you have marketing strategy, finance strategy, you have LinkedIn strategy. Like all of a sudden, everything turns into a strategy, basically. But if you look at it, what these people actually mean when talking about strategy is just a plan. Is basically where we're at right now, where would we like to go, and what's in between. Like if, for example, you would want to double your revenue this year, that would be basically the foundation of what your strategy is going to look like. But I think it's built up in a lot of different parts and elements. But in the end, if you just really hammer it down, I think it's just about making a plan and making a plan that's executionable by your team to get to a specific point that you've decided from like the start or like from the beginning of the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. So the you mentioned it's like where you're at now. It was three things you mentioned: where you're at now, something, and where you want to go. I'm sorry, I'm missing I don't have a pen near me. I wanted to write them down. Can we start with where you're at now? Like, how do you think about that step in the process? Like, for yourself or when you're working with other founders, like, what kind of information do you gather to, like, how do you figure that out? How do you paint a picture of where somebody is at, if that's where you start?
Good one. I think when talking to founders, I usually start with what I call a diagnostic call, which is basically getting a sense of where we're at right now, like what's happening, what's been going well, what's been going not too well, but also why hasn't it been going as we expected. And what I usually like to like point my arrows at is where did you think you were going to be today, and how is that different from where you actually are? And what caused it? And this is a very hard question to answer, like as a person yourself, because what we do as humans is we make a lot of like cognitive distortions. So we have an idea of what's happening, but usually we don't have it very clear, very sharp, because that's the emotions and the rationality fighting against each other. So usually people have no real clue of where they're at right now. So the point is really to diagnose it. And I tried doing it with just the founders, so not the entire team on board, because that's like the most non-political view that you can get. And I saw you smiling at the distortion part. I think that's a word that you planted in my brain, right?
Maybe I don't know. I talk about cognitive distortions. Maybe we could have picked it up from each other. Totally. Yeah. My therapist uses it a lot.
I mean, a lot of the things that I do actually are very closely related to therapy. I used to say that the crossroads at where I'm at with my business is psychology and strategy, because a strategy that is not aligned with how we feel or how we're supposed to feel, that's never going to work, because you need your emotion to buy into it. I mean, a plan that makes sense from a cognitive perspective, so what you can rationalize, is not always a plan that people are going to be following. It's not that it makes sense that makes you do it. And I like to compare this with people that go to the gym, or like that want to go to the gym. They have a feeling like purely rational, I probably need to do this, but they haven't figured out the why behind it, like their motivation. Why would I want to go to the gym? So I think the first part of figuring out where you're at right now is also, I mean, the where you're at and where you want to go is usually closely related, right? Because this is going to be the starting point of the plan that you're going to be building. Um, but to jump back on the emotional connection to it, and like the psychology part, just knowing that something is a smart move, and like having the rationale of knowing this is what I need to be doing, that's not enough. Like you need emotional connection to the happening and the endpoint.
That makes total sense. Okay, so this is my next question is like a little bit more of a personal one, and
Mhm.
it's you're like the same way you ask founders, why do you want to go where you're going? Like, why strategy? Like, why is this what Ruben has decided to like devote his life and time to? Like, yeah, why strategy? Like, why'd you pick it? Why is it something that you're so passionate about?
Hmm. I I think I haven't really thought about this one, so it's going to be a live thought experiment. But I think it really started back when I was in the festival industry. So I was helping out a lot of big Belgian festivals in revenue management, basically. And the one thing that always stood out for me is these guys have a pretty specific target. Like they have a very specific goal, and everything that they do is aligned with it. That also means that a team is easily aligned with what they're supposed to be doing, because you have one single target. And for example, for a festival, I mean, it all sounds very much fun, and it's very creative, and it's very nice to go to, but in the end they have to make money. And money is not made from just selling tickets, it's made on the festival terrain. It's made from the people that buy food and that buy drinks. So if a festival is running, the main focus that they're supposed to be having is how are we going to increase or maintain the revenue that we have? And everything else leads toward that point. And then you could ask the question like, but people still need to have a good time. Yeah, that's included within the revenue strategy, right? So when I was doing these festivals, I pretty quickly realized that festivals only run about 5 months per year, so I didn't really have a business for the other 7 months. So I started figuring out what's like the other thing that I could be doing. And I think I started out with processes and tools and like the whole digital side of things, and trying to make business more efficient in the work that they do. And afterwards, I mean, I was starting to take on some projects. I was helping out some companies, but then I realized that if you would compare it to a car, for example, you could have an engine that is super efficient and that runs on 100% green electricity, that is doing all the right stuff to be super efficient. But if you're not sure where you're headed with the car, then you have a super efficient car that is still going to be hitting the gas pedal in neutral. Nothing's going to happen. You're just going to waste a lot of energy standing still. So that's when I started realizing that if these tools and these processes don't really connect to a plan, like don't have a certain direction of where to go, then there's two things that might happen. Either the car is just going to stand still, it's not going to move, or it's going to start moving. And at every single crossroads, at every single place where the streets like split up, they're going to switch lanes. They're going to start moving direction again. And I really try to like visualize this, and I then see a car like literally driving around in the city, if you're not sure where you're headed, you're just going to end up in the same place, but you'll have spent a lot of energy to just be back in the same spot. And when I was like exploring this path, and it took me a while to realize, but the one thing that I'm really good at is figuring out what's really going wrong. Like, what's our false belief? What's this one thing that's keeping us from actually creating the plan? And so the diagnostic part of what I do is really where my superpower kind of shines. And then I decided, let's build my whole business around it. And I think, yet again, if you start talking about strategy, then everyone starts thinking of like strategy consulting and the big four that are just delivering 200 page slide decks and stuff like that. That's not really helping out. I mean, that's just words on a paper that you might realize is pretty smart, but in the end, you're not going to be taking action, right? So the real fun thing for me is, how do we get people in a room? How can we make them create their own strategy as if they would be building an IKEA piece of furniture? And how can we get people to buy into the plan so that afterwards everyone knows, what am I supposed to be doing? Where is that leading the company? How is that helping us build this business? And most of all, the founder has to do no change management, because at the end, you have a management team that is fully aligned on the plan that you're gonna execute, and they know what's up. And as soon as I figured that one out, like, this is an ability, this is something that you can work on. That for me was like the greatest reward that I could have in work. So that was a very long story just to like get you straight on why strategy actually.
It's a good story. I want to like dive even a little bit deeper into this one, which is like, feel free to answer this either for yourself or for the people you work with. But in the beginning, you talked about like the logical kind of side of strategy and the plan. And then like just now, I thought I found it really insightful when you talked about the difference between like one of the big four just sending you a 300 slide deck versus getting people in the room and them actually creating the strategy for themselves. So getting them in the room and having them do that, like in my head, that bucket falls under that other side you were talking about, more like the feeling side and the buy-in side. And so I'm just curious, like, are there other like tools, tactics? I don't really know what the right word that I'm searching here is, but just like other things that you notice really help contribute to like not just the creation of like the plan and the logical side, but that emotional buy-in side, or even like, sorry, this is a double-edged question, so you just decide where you want to start. Journalists would hate me. You're only supposed to ask one. But or even things that like some of them when you're doing those diagnostics, like the most common things like that you notice are stopping that, like either A, how you work with people to overcome them, or B, what those most common like that feeling side, that buy-in side, like how do you think about that side specifically?
Go on. I think what usually happens is, let's just say founders as a whole and like entrepreneurs and business leaders, whatever you want to call it, people in charge of running a business, most of them, or at least most of the ones that I've worked with, have some kind of neurodiversity. Most of them are on the ADHD spectrum, on the autism spectrum, whatever. They're inside of the same, for me, that's the same plane, basically. And what happens with these people is they're either very good at executing a specific task, or they have a lot of good ideas. So what usually happens is either they jump into the execution hole, or they jump into the vision hole, which means new ideas each and every day. And what usually happens is it goes wrong in like the translation part. And I did a podcast about a year ago where I talked about there's only two roles in a business. Basically, you have promoters and you have operators, and that's about it. You have people selling the thing, people making the thing, or like delivering the service. That's about it. And usually, if it's a solo founder, they're going to be one of both. So they're going to be good at the promoting the business or like the execution part. And what usually happens is, or like the main challenge is the translation from I have an idea into how is my team going to help me to execute on the idea? Like how are they going to create a plan that's going to work? And both of those founders have an issue with that one because the execution, like the operator founder, is always going to be talking about this is how you're supposed to be doing it. They're process controllers. And the other guy or the other girl or the other they, whatever, they have the loads of ideas. And each and every day they come up with new stuff, new stuff, new stuff. And they expect it to be done because they can think of the idea super fast, but no one can execute on their idea as fast as they can think of it. Just to like summarize, what usually happens is just they have a sense of direction, but they haven't really clarified it. So they know maybe we're going north, and the north is like staying quite like certain along the way, but they haven't really figured out what's north looking like. Are we going exactly this degree, or are we changing just a little bit? And by not inviting people inside of that story, they're not going to be able to execute on it. So I think main issue is both of those profiles not having the right tools or not having been prepped to translate a story like that for a team. And then the second part for me is how do we solve it is inviting people into the room, because a lot of founders become the bottleneck of their company because they have the feeling that they're the only one that have the ability to create strategy or to create a plan or to get stuff done. Whereas as soon as you invite the team, you have a tenfold of the talent and the ideas that you could use to get actually going. And this is where I usually get the IKEA metaphor inside of the room. If you invite these people to build the furniture with you, they're going to become the co-owner. And so it's all about creating a place in which, first of all, there's safety, in which people feel safe to share their ideas. And that safety allows for actually talking about the truth, like what's really going on, and then you can get into direction, which is, I think that's one of the basic models in therapy as well. I think even it's a couples therapy. Like I stole some ideas from that training. That's basically how I help in creating that translation part.
Okay, cool. Which are you of the two types? Which are you?
That's such a hard one to answer. I mean, if you're inside of the bottle, you can't see the label on the bottle, right? I think I'm a visionary, so I'm more the promoter kind. But I'm just very good at starting the execution. Like I can kickstart execution. What I really suck at is bringing it to the finish line. I'm really good at creating the idea and getting people to buy into it. But then as soon as it's solved inside of my head, as soon as I've created my own plan, I'm like, I'm good. It's not very interesting to me anymore. I think that's an issue that a lot of founders are struggling with. And that's the whole issue that we solve. So it's funny that I've built a business for an issue that, of course, I have myself, which is like the main thing to do. What do you think you are?
I definitely resonate with, well, it's hard for me too, but definitely the visionary side. Like I think I have learned aspects of the other, but like if I could have a magic wand, like wake up tomorrow and like only be like if all I could do is sit in the vision and not have to do the execution, I think I struggle to like with exactly what you're talking about. Like sometimes if I don't feel like people are understanding what I'm saying or like I'm not communicating it right, then I'm like, fuck it, I'll just execute. Like I'll just step
Mm-hmm.
into that role. But that one is like more out of like what feels, it might be a distortion, but like what feels like necessity or like I just have to versus like the other one is want to. Like the visionary role is like what I want to do. Like it's just natural. It's not like I have to do it because nobody else can. It's like this is just what I like love to do. Um yeah.
I love the distinction that you made, have to and want to. Because what I see happening a lot of the times is visionary leaders or visionary entrepreneurs that are very good in the wanting to, getting the team in there, getting the ideas straight, creating the plan. And because of sustained periods of having to, that's their MO. Like all of a sudden they jump into have to do this, have to do that, because people won't be able to follow because I have all of these ideas. So I'm just going to jump in and do it myself. And that's like the other way of like that's the whole other end of the balance, right? So want to is on this side. I really want to be working on this creative idea. Have to, because if I'm not going to be doing it, then who's going to be doing it, right? And I think that's like the main pain. Like if I ever would have to do Google search whatsoever optimization, I would 100% look for the sentence that is explaining that one correctly. What's my have to and my want to within my business, and how do I get them aligned again? That's like the full crux, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, the other thing, I mean, I've just been thinking about this recently, but something that I realize is sometimes like happening, or that I've started to notice that it like is, you've touched on it like in different pieces of your responses to different questions. But so like it's hard enough, right, to like get myself to have like, there's the plan, and then there's like getting my emotional like buy-in and that feeling side to it. And like those two things are really big mountains in and of themselves. And then sometimes, like, I've realized, like, the best analogy, I don't know, this isn't exactly right, but the best way I can explain this is like something that I've realized is like, as the visionary, I have to leave, like, the vision has to be big enough for the team. It has to be big enough for to fit everybody's, has to be big enough to fit everything for everybody that will cause those, create those same feelings of like buy-in from everybody. So like historically, I think it's like I have the strategy, I have the idea, I have the plan. Then I get to the point where I have emotional buy-in, and then somebody else, like I pitch it to them in 5 minutes, or I try to explain it to them, and they don't have the kind of emotional buy-in that I am, like that I have. So then it's like, how do I get that emotional buy-in? Like, and each individual on like my team is different. So it's not like, oh, here's how to get Brooke emotionally bought in, and here's how to get the rest of the team emotionally bought in. It's like each individual has like different things, like, and motivations. And so it's all like, I almost think of it as leaving like blank spots in the vision, or like black holes. Because like I have to leave room to like, if I really care about and I'm really passionate about helping like founders and like something to do with like intelligence, but like maybe I don't care as much about the how, and somebody comes in and somebody's really passionate about events, or somebody else is like really passionate about building software, whatever those things are, like if I don't care about, if for me that's not the part that's keeping me emotionally bought in, and the plan still works by like leaving space for putting those people's like, making sure it aligns with like their goals, their motivations, the things that they want to learn, and they feel equal ownership over the vision. Because like a lot of times when I'm doing all of it, like I've realized they don't feel ownership, and then getting that like buy-in is very hard. But then sometimes it's like I delegate too much, and then I no longer feel ownership, like I don't feel like it's my plan. So like that balance of like getting everybody bought in, and like is the challenge. And like that, I think, is when I find myself slipping into the execution have to, because
Mhm.
it's just easier than like trying to deal with all the other things that I'm like talking about. But yeah, I want to get better and better about not slipping into that as often and frequently, if that makes sense.
Makes makes 100% sense. And I think what happens there is we get super enthusiastic about something, and we get enthusiastic about maybe a part of the execution. There's a lot of stuff that we're not yet tackling. So where this really starts is having the founder have a very clear idea, or the entrepreneur, whatever business leader, have a very clear idea on what is the dot on the horizon. Like what's the, I don't want to jump into North Star metrics and that kind of jazz, but what's like the one thing that you see on the horizon that you want to move towards? What's that thing? And that's basically, as soon as you get that one very clear, then all of a sudden you're able to also pull other people in and ask them, all right, that's the point on the horizon. That's where we want to be going. How do you see that? What's that look like for you? And so instead of coming from a position of, I have this all figured out, or this is what it's going to look like, inviting in the other people and asking them about it from like a curious perspective, that usually helps in making sure that they get bought in. And maybe that's also like the whole belief part, with founders and with their teams as well. The founder doesn't have to have it all figured out. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out from day one. um, and maybe that's also because the sessions that we do, we usually divide them into two parts. Part one is just making sure that the founder is very clear on where they actually want to go. If it's co-founders, then of course that's even more important, because then you have to do the actual relationship therapy work. Like, are they aligned? Is the dot the same dot that we're moving towards? And for them to have that one clear is like the definite step that you need before you start pulling in the team, because if not, then it's just going to get emotionally disconnected. So step one would really be, how clear is that idea, and get challenged on it. Because let's be honest, we can't challenge ourselves. AI can't challenge us, so other people have to shoot holes into our idea, basically. And as soon as that one is clear, only then can we start inviting our team in. And I realize while talking about this that it sounds as if this is only valid for like starting founders, for like new idea startups, like recent businesses. The point is, in like medium aged businesses, like let's say in between 5 to 10 years old, something like that, it gets worse in a way, because not having that plan, not having that clear vision erodes into the business. And all of a sudden, the what of the business, so the what you do, the daily operations, all of a sudden, that's like the baseline. And anything that we do is either changing a little bit on the baseline, or like staying in the baseline, staying on that specific direction. So if you don't get challenged on that plan either, then you're not really going to be moving along with the business. So I think that's like the main thing for like starting business. And let's say, is it medium old business? I have no clue. Like, what is an old business, right? Or like, what's a seasoned business plan? Anyway, just segueing over there.
Yeah, I have questions, but I have a thought, and I just want to see if it triggers any thoughts for you. But the other thing that I think, or that I notice in myself and like founders that I work with as well, is it's typically not like somebody thinks that they don't have a strategy at all. Like, it almost very rarely are we like entirely starting from scratch. Like, I think for a lot of founders, I notice like a lot of the whys and things, and they're like goes back to pre like we build these things over time. So like I kind of think of it as like dating or marriage, right? Like, once you're married, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm good, I don't have to do anything anymore. Like, I think of it as like that strategy, that why, like it's almost like a daily practice to connect to that why, and like it should iterate and grow with you over time, like the same way that the business does. Because like none of us want to stay in kindergarten or first grade like forever, right? Like at one point we really like dinosaurs, and then the next year we really like something else. So like finding different ways to connect with that at different points in time. So in the beginning it's exciting because everything's new and it started, but like I would hypothesize that like 5 to 10 years in, there might be like a little bit of like, why did I even start in the first place? Like, the company's grown and changed. So it's not like there's zero strategy, but like reconnecting or updating or iterating that. Like, I would imagine that that would be relevant to the process.
100%. I just, by the way, figured out how to like pronounce it in a way. Maybe it's good to call it pre-revenue and like post-revenue. Pre-revenue meaning we're really starting as a business, and post-revenue to me means you've already proven that you can sell your service or product, and now it's time to like move it along further along the line. And I think post-revenue could be 10 years in, 20 years in, whatever. But to get back to the getting married and all of a sudden not having to do the work, I think another metaphor that really fits the bill, and I really like my sporting metaphors, is when going to the gym. For example, you could have been in the gym for about 5 years, and the first 6 months were really exciting. You were figuring stuff out, you saw some results, maybe you were losing some weight, putting on some muscle, you start looking toned. But then there's like this plateau that you hit. There's like this ceiling to what you can get to as a founder or as a fitness person. And at that stage, it's not like the solution isn't, I need to change tiny bits. about what I'm doing. The solution, or like the way to tackle this challenge, really is, okay, how have I been performing? What's that looking like? And what's the new target that I want to be moving towards? And as people don't really like externally pushed change, you're not really inclined to start questioning yourself, because that also can hurt. If you're 3 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, all of a sudden you're challenged with, these are all of the things that would have to change for you to get growing again. That's a tough game. I wouldn't want to be 5 years in getting called out for having to change a big thing within my business, right? And I think having that point of challenge, be it in a relationship, be it in the gym, that's really what will help you move towards the next step. It's usually not just gradual little incremental changes, but it really is, how do we get the point on the horizon clear again and our path towards it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I like the way that you position that. Okay, now I have another question from like earlier you said founders don't have to have it all figured out. I agree intellectually.
Mm-hmm.
However, sometimes, like in my head, I get that. Sometimes, like in my heart or in my feelings, like I catch myself slip. I notice everybody, like, I notice that, right? People slipping into that. Because like ChatGPT has it all figured out, right? Like I ask it a question and he gives me an outline, a plan, exactly what to do. So if I don't have that, then like, why is my team gonna like? Anyways, that's that aside. If you had to like hypothesize on the most common fear or fears that founders are slipping into or having when they start to feel that way, like they do have to have it all figured out and like start to really present that way, what would those fears be?
Failing all over the board. And I could paint it in 3 different colors, this answer, but it's always going to be the same one. First one is going to be, I'm going to make a fool of myself. This is not going to work. This plan is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to sell this service, sell this product. I'm not going to be able to deliver it, maybe. So I'm going to sell it, but then all of a sudden I can't deliver it. And that's like losing face. That's like losing their figure that they've built around them. So that's failing just from like an emotional perspective. I now feel like a failure because I wasn't able to pull it off. That's, I think, the main thing, right? And then second one would be running out of money. People that have a sense of comfort, if you have built a business that brings in a certain amount of money, why change? Because every change could lead to failure. If you F it up, that's on you. Or at least that's what it feels like as a founder. And that's like the sense of loan, I guess, as well. Feeling responsible for like end-to-end strategy and delivery also means that whatever goes wrong feels like your mistake. So I think failing is the main fear that founders have when at that point.
Good answer. Okay, this is the last question. And I stole a version of this from somebody whose name and podcast I forgot, but credit where credit's due. This isn't. Anyways, if this whole podcast that we just did was like erased and everything that you've ever talked about on like strategy, like your website, all your podcasts were like, if you had to leave people with one sentence on why strategy matters, what would that one sentence be?
How do you know where to put your foot first if you're not aware of where you're headed?
Anger. Okay, I love it. That's the title of the podcast. There we go.
And I mean, seriously, naming podcasts is one of the toughest, but also the most fun things to do, because you could go either way. Here's a piece of value that you can find in a podcast, or here's a complete insensible piece of text that doesn't relate to the podcast at all, but you're gonna buy into it. But I think the putting one foot in what place as like a starting point would be a good one. You asked me the question, like, what would my sentence be? If I would reflect that one to you, let me mirror it. What is the one thing that you take away from this podcast? What's one idea, one lesson, one single thing that you think you still want to hold on to in like the next 2 weeks?
Hmm. I'm thinking so many are popping into my head. Um,
This is like a very good point for our listeners as well
yeah.
to
I mean, okay,
manage
for
their own
me,
thoughts. Yeah.
I think it's this like the way that you talked about it helped me see it in a different light. And like I started thinking about like our right brain, left brain. Like our left
Mhm.
brain is like more like, and so it's like this balance of like the logic and analytical like plan side of strategy with like strategy is also equally the right brain like feeling emotion like side. And so it's just like it's honestly just thinking about like that balance, like both are strategy, and like finding that right balance and remembering that it's not one or the other is like the thing that you honestly really have me thinking about with everything that you talked about.
I think if I would have to summarize or like have to pinch that one inside of my own brain, I would call it the disconnecting between emotion and the rationale. And regardless of what theme we're talking about, it could be relationships, but it could also be business strategy. If right and left don't align, it's not going to work. And so thinking of this as a founder, how in God's name could your team execute your strategy if your own left and right part brain are not even aligned on where you actually want to go, right? So I like that. I like the way that you picked this one as your takeaway. It's like the how do I connect or like how do I create a sound strategy cognitively with what I know and feel about where I actually want to be going, right? And now I'm gonna stop my segue into that one because if not, I'm just gonna get lost and you'll see me talking for hours about some very abstract things. I mean, that's for another session, maybe.
Make people pay for that. That's your protected IP, so I think that's good.
Good deal. Brooke, thank you so much for joining in again. I really do hope that I see you again within 2 weeks for another recording of
I'll
our
be here
episode.
as long as you keep inviting me. I'll keep showing up. It's a lot of
I
fun. I
will.
appreciate you for having me.
I
Yeah,
will. And
it's a lot
maybe
of
if
fun.
you're listening to this podcast, and I know that at this stage we don't have thousands of listeners yet. We're getting there, but not yet. But when you're listening to this podcast, let us know on whatever channel you're listening to. Let us know how it felt to hear a conversation instead of just me mindscaping over subjects. And also, we were talking about strategy today. What would be your point of interest for coming episodes? Because of course we've got a lot of topics to talk about, but we want to cater to the people that are actually listening, right? So if you want more of this, we drop a new founder hotline every 2 weeks. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Substack, wherever you listen. And if you're a founder running between 8 and let's say 100 people and you want to be in the room where we're in our next scan, the invite list will be linked in our next episode to be in the room that I'm in for the next scan that we're doing.
Amazing. Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks, Brooke. Have a good one.